This week wasn't a full build week. It was a proper week in the shop. A small table experiment. A planter box getting finished, almost. And the outdoor pantry moving a step closer, but not almost finished. Not yet. Got up. Welcome to another week in the workshop. Got several projects on the go as always. I've got sides for a couple more drawers for the outdoor pantry. I've got this guy to do. I still have my square table from weeks ago that I need to make up. But while the weather's kind of beautiful right now, it's heading into winter, and managing the storage of this guy in this tiny shop is a pain. If I finish it, then I can store it outside. So that's the priority. Let's get this guy finished. I'm going to beef up the legs, make these wider and stronger, support underneath this rail, and a bit more decorative on the top. So that's the plan. Underneath my table saw, I have some dry boards that I can use. I also have some boards in my roof storage. This is the one I finished a few weeks back, so I just need to match that. So, beefed up corners, support underneath, and rails across the top. Also, this one has a bottom in it, whereas the other one doesn't. So that finished planter box, the added bits are about 12mm thick. The bits that go in here, they're about 12mm thick that way. And these nicely planed and finished guys that I got from roof storage are almost 20mm, and I don't want to turn them into sawdust. So I'll slice up this guy for legs, for the leg parts, and then I'll use the stuff from under the table saw for the top rails. These guys aren't super easy to mill because the wood is really kind of chewy, I think I've mentioned before. So I've chalked up the ripping blade with the nice big gaps between the teeth, and I'm going to first up just run it between the fence and the blade just to clean up the two faces, this face and this face, a little bit, make it a little bit more parallel, and then I'll set this to 12mm and rip away. Back to the fine tooth blade for the next bit. It just gives a nicer finish. It's typically a crosscut blade, but I use it when I can because it means less cleanup. So the next thing is to tidy up the edges on these guys here, and then I'll tilt the blade on a 45 and rip off the corners. And then we have nice mitered corners. There we are. I've got my four corners all made up and test fit. So let's glue them on there. 25mm, 16 gauge. Chunky legs all around. Now for the top. Now for this stuff, I'm tempted to just put it through the planer, but first I'll take it outside and brush all the dust off with a wire brush. Make sure there's no rocks in them. I have a working theory that all boards are useful, but Yeah, these ones are really going to put that to the test. That's why I'm quite happy to plane these ones down to about 12 mil because they're so ratty. Hopefully by the time we get down to 12 mil, they'll be good enough. Five, 6 passes on the mill, on the planer, and they've come up reasonably well. Now I'm going to go back over to the table saw, joint them, and then cut some strips at 50 mil wide for the border around the top. All right, table saw. Miters in the corners, and that'll be our top. Right, over we go to the crosscut sled to cut those miters. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? Coming together. The next job might be tough to see from here, but there's a gap here I want to fill. So we'll use some scraps and fill that in. The offcuts from earlier fit nicely in those gaps. My trusty measuring device tells me they need to be 11 mil thick. So set this to 11 mil, rip, cut to length, fit. All of the corners are in. They look like quite solid legs. Just the bottoms to go. Some little pieces in here. So I've made some little blocks over at the table saw to surround the feet. The main reason for this is that gives you an extra reference that is between the ground and this guy. So that just improves the strength a lot, I think. So that's the point of that. Apart from aesthetics, I think it looks better with the chunkier legs. So like when I redesign, I wouldn't do it like this. I'd start with legs that were that big and I'd recess the rails further in and you'd end up with the same result. But this is just a retrofit, if you will. So pin and glue and we're done. And so on all the way around. Nice and chunky. Last job for the day, I'll make up some epoxy paste and fill a bunch of holes. So this is 1:2 ratio. So I mark half and then 1.5. And I know that hit that line with the hardener and then that line with the other one, part B, part A, part B, then the ratio will be right. And I pour this one in first because it's more liquid so it doesn't stick to the edges. Give it a good stir. Secret sauce. This sawdust collected from my little orbital sander. Just tip some of this in here. Keep going until I get a nice paste. I think that's going to do. It's like still a bit runny, but much stiffer than it was before. And what that's going to do is it makes it easier to fill the holes. All the epoxy doesn't just run out. I can do the vertical stuff and it has a nice opaque colour instead of being clear. I'll just keep working my way around and then that'll be it for the day. We'll catch you in the morning. Another beautiful day on the ranch. I'm working on this planter box so I can store it outside because of all the rain. There's been beautiful sunshine ever since I said that. Anyway, that little tub of epoxy that I used last night, I was able to do the whole thing. Even gave it some little epoxy shoes. So that's one of the problems with, planter boxes or anything that's got an exposed foot, is that the open grain just sucks the water up like straws. So if you're given an epoxy shoe covering, then sorts that out. That said, it's a bit sticky, so I'll move on to some other things. While it's sticky, I can put the floor in. So I'll rip up one of those for the flooring. I think one will be enough. If not, I'll use some other scraps that I've got lying around. I also remembered that I had one of my shelves for the outdoor pantry, drawers for the outdoor pantry that doesn't have a bottom. And I thought I could just use those panels that I milled up yesterday and didn't finish. I don't need to have a nice kind of laminated panels for a drawer bottom. It's just a set of boards glued up into a panel will do for that. So I'll do that. And then I'll move on to the square table and finally have a crack at making some progress on that. So that's the day ahead. Let's go. First up, I'll do the drawer panel, or panel for the drawer bottom. So these are the guys I made yesterday. I need 4 bits. So I'll try something a bit different. Normally I would join an edge, then I would cross cut. Let's cross cut and then join the edge, see if that makes any difference. Because I think theoretically, if they're shorter, they'll reference better against the fence, and I might lose less material when I'm joining the edges. So let's try that. So I think I need 330-ish mil wide to start with. So let's set up for that. That worked really well. Joining the boards on the table saw after cutting them short, and it was basically because you had the full length referenced on the fence. That worked, really well. I've decided that this panel's a bit awkward for a sticky tape glue up, so I've gone the old stash clamps. Gone from a few bits of sticky tape to pretty much every clamp I own. That's super overkill, but it'll be flat. Onto the flooring for the planter box. I'm going to take a leaf out of the book that I just learned, the book that I just read, if you will, and before I put the ripping blade on, I'm going to cut this to length, and then I'll swap the blades, joint and rip. I'm going to do 18mm strips for the flooring for this guy. I get 4 or 5 out of each. I think I'll probably need 2. I'll grab another one. But yeah, let's try crosscut first, then rip. I'll actually get 3. I should be able to do it in one. Let's chop it. Do 300ths. Give myself a bit of wiggle room. I've been complaining a little bit about how tricky these boards are to mill up. Chewy. I've been a bit lucky lately. I've had some good ones, but this one, I'll show you one in one rip cut in real time, and you'll get an idea of what I mean. That was hard work. Check this out. This blade was clean before I ripped those boards. So much resin. one stick left over. It's not too bad for guesswork. Now this guy can go outside to dry, and I'll sand and finish it tomorrow. I've got all the pieces ready for the square table. I've even figured out what size I want it to be, but I forgot that I need a couple more of these rails for the outdoor pantry, so I think I'll make them first because I've got stock here that just needs to be ripped and joined. So I'll do that, and then I might finish the drawer bottom, and then that might be it for the day. It's because I've been having some computer problems, so it's taken up a lot of time. Anyway, I'm going to rip this, make the rails, finish that drawer. Oh no, I put the sticky tape up the wrong way. That's going to be a problem. Not so bad. Phew. So now I've just got to make it fit in here. Yet another magnificent day on the ranch. That's 3 in a row, and that does not happen around here. I don't trust it. Anyway, despite the temptation, I'm not going to sand the planter box just yet because I'm actually going to get started on this thing. The square table, it's been on the list for many weeks now. And it goes, the idea with it is to kind of make it a companion to the 2 planter boxes that I'm making. So you have like a planter box and then a little table with some ornaments on it and then another planter box, that kind of vibe. And I have some ideas about how I'm going to make it. And of course, that will start with make these guys square. So I've chalked up the ripping blade on the table saw and I'll make these guys square. I'll probably chop them in half first because it's only like 430. Let me refer to my plans. Yeah, about 430 mil high. So I'll chop it in half, make them square, make them all the sides parallel all the way around. And then I have an idea on how I'm going to do the joinery. So it should be a good day. Let's get into it. I was reading my plans without my glasses. They're actually 230 high, so half the height of the planter box. So I'll get 3 out of one and 1 out of this other one. Just to quickly recap that process, I just tidied up the edges and then I set the saw to the narrow dimension. So these ones are wide and they're narrow. Set the saw to the narrow width, cut these guys off. So now they're roughly square. Then I just brought the fence in about 1 millimetre and run the 2 worst sides through the table saw up against the fence with the good side up against the fence. And that way you get, so you do one that way, then you rotate it, one that way, and you end up with perfectly square bits of wood. So there's our legs. They're not quite the right height, but they're nice and square, finished size here and here. So next I'm not sure what's next. Yeah, nah, let's talk about this. Next, I have these parts that I've glued together that are going to be the rails that go in between the posts. So, posts like that, rails go across there. In my last kind of rustic build, I used pocket holes to do the joinery. In this one, I'm going to use mortise and tenon, but I'm going to use a trick. At least in my mind, it's a trick because the mortise and tenon kind of scares me a little bit. Cutting out and getting the depths right and all that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna try something here with the Dado Stack, and yeah, let's see how that goes. So I'll chalk up the Dado Stack, then I'll work on these guys again. I'll show you what I mean. Here's my plan. I'm going to use the Dado Stack to cut out channels in my legs all the way down. I've worked out that about 12mm gives me a decent cut in without leaving too little left. So we'll do that. We'll set this to 12mm deep. We'll put it just off centre, run it one way, turn it around, run it the other way. That way the channels will be directly in the centre. And then we'll process the rails before we go on and do the next thing. I think this is going to work. Let's see. The next part of this puzzle is to use the offcuts to fill in most of the slots I just cut and leave me with a mortise at the top. To me, that seems like a good way of getting it done. I don't have any sharp chisels and I don't have any way of making them sharp. I just don't have the skills yet. So chiseling out, 2 mortises per leg would take me forever and it would be messy. Whereas this way, it's nice and clean, and future me can learn how to do it properly. But for now, I'm going to do it this way. Now, I did measure them, but I didn't test fit the first one. I really should have. What are the chances they're going to fit? Ooh. They fit. It's supposed to be just a little bit proud that way and a little bit narrow that way, but well, yeah, they're going to be fine. This one's a bit tighter. That's okay. All right, so I need to make at least one end really nice and square. So back to the table saw. My brain's working a bit slow this morning. I think I need to make these final height before it's set. Then I want them about 60 from the top, but these are quite a lot bigger than I want them to be. I want them to be 230 and they're just over 300. So I need to trim these to 230 first. Back to the table saw, get these the right height, then get these the right height, then glue them in. My thinking on fitting these in here is that this gap doesn't need to be perfect because I haven't made the rails yet, so I can make the rails to fit the gap. So that's the plan. So I've just made them all the same. So now I've just got to fit them in there. Get the glue out. And away we go. fit was a bit tighter than I would have liked, but with a bit of persuasion, we got there. Yeah, I'll let them dry up. And I left these guys a tiny bit proud, so I'll run them through the table saw again to clean that up to the final size. And yeah, I don't know, they're little pockets. They're perfect. Way better than I could have done with a chisel. What do you reckon? Is that a reasonable way to do that for a beginner? I don't know. Took a fair while, but I don't think it was any slower than it would have been with the chisel for me. Gonna have a bit of lunch. When I come back, they'll be dry enough to run through the table saw, so we'll clean them up and then work on the rails. Legs are done. I think that's pretty good. I don't think you do better with a chisel. Controversial. Anyway, legs are done. Now I've got to tidy up these rails. What I'll do is I'll figure out how long I want them, cut them to that length, or I think I'm going to run them through the planer a couple times first because they're a bit too thick. So they go like that. That's just a bit too chunky. So I'm going to plane them down. Parts are coming together now. I've got my legs, got my rails. I've got to figure out what the distance is from there to there, and this is correct. But yeah, I think that's, what do you think of the jointing technique? I mean, you can't really fault that. That's pretty damn good. I guess it works because the saw would kind of rather cut the high bits than it would cut the low bits. And if you do it enough times back and forth, they end up flat. I don't know, seems to work. I've not seen anybody else do it that way. So yeah, tell me in the comments below why it doesn't work and I'll show you these. Okay, now I need to figure out that distance. So I'll get to that and then I'll just chop these. 283 was the number. So basically I just got the final dimension by lining these up with the marks on the table. And final dimension is 385 from my handy dandy notebook. So then the distance between the two plus 13 deep. 283. So now I've just got to make these fit in there. Over to the table saw and the Dado Stack. Yet another thing I don't really know how to do. I'm just going to start really shallow and sneak up on it. Shallow like this way and the blade is really shallow. And I'll sneak up on it until hopefully I'll get a nice snug fit in here. That took 20 minutes all up to make 4 of these. We've got all the bits and bobs. So this guy slots in down to there. Hopefully it's pretty much clock on, but nothing will stick up more than I can sand off easily. So the next go is tidy these up with a bit of a sanding block, then glue it together. So let's do that. Did I say that took 20 minutes all up? I think that's pretty good. I don't normally dry fit, but I'm going to make an exception for this one because it's making me nervous. Alright, let's see. Part A fits into part B. Once dry fit, never get it out. Too tight? Probably. Oh, that's got a glue in it. Need to fix that. Normally, right about now, I'd be racing to put some glue on that and fit it all together because that looks mighty good, I reckon. I'm very pleased. But I'm growing up, gaining experience. I need to sand it. I also want to attach the lid with, or the top with pocket holes. So it's going to have to wait. And yeah, I'm out of time. So it's going to have to wait until next week. Sorry guys, but we're close. We're very close. It is definitely going to be a square table. 8 weeks in the making. Pretty pleased with that. The weather here has just been absolutely magnificent. On the week that I was racing to get these things finished so that I didn't need to store them out of the rain in the shop, and it's just been beautiful. I hope it's great where you are. Let me know. I'm very pleased with how this turned out. Let me know what you think about my joinery trick. I'm sure I'm not the first one to have done it, but I've not seen anybody do it that way before. It certainly worked really well. Let me know in the comments what you think, and yeah, I'll catch you guys next week.